I'm sure after a tea break, it's not the best time to start, but let's get going because I'm sure a lot of us use LinkedIn. How many of us use LinkedIn? That's almost 100%. You just made the day of the next person coming on stage. I have the pleasure of introducing and inviting on stage my friend Manu Sharma. Manu is the principal data scientist of LinkedIn. And you know what LinkedIn has done with our data. It has found insights which we even didn't know about. He runs the data analytics team at LinkedIn. And he'll be talking about things that we always wanted to ask LinkedIn but didn't have either the connection or didn't know who to ask. The big data man, Manu Sharma.
If you don't clap for him, all your accounts are getting deleted tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, PK. You kind of stole my opening line there. I was going to start by asking the audience a question. I guess I'll still do the same thing. But I just want to acknowledge and say I really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And all of you guys, thanks for being here. I know it's close to the end of day 2. And you're probably anxious to get out of here, so I'm going to try to make this interactive and fun. So show of hands, how many people have a LinkedIn profile? Once again, let's do this. So that's about 100%. Awesome. How many of you have a profile that's updated recently? Not bad. How many of you have Googled yourself lately? It's okay. You can admit it. We all do it. It's all right. Vanity. That's what it's all about. So the reason I'm asking this question is, think about LinkedIn as your professional digital real estate. When people look for you and they don't find your LinkedIn profile, that's a potential opportunity lost for you guys. So really important to keep that profile up to date. So as Prashant said, I lead a data science team at LinkedIn, and I'm going to talk to you about if I can figure out how to work this.
Can we have his PPT loaded, please?
I think I already.
Yeah.
There we go. Perfect. So I'm going to talk to you about data science at LinkedIn, insights and innovation at scale. Now, I'm a geek, so if you look at the title of my presentation, there are 5 keywords here: data science, LinkedIn, insights, innovation, and scale. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about. So we'll start with LinkedIn. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the company. And at the end of this, I'm going to leave you guys with some best practices of what I have found works when you're doing data science, building data products and teams. LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's mission is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful at their day-to-day jobs. Now, whether it means we do this by connecting talent with opportunity, so finding the right jobs for the right professionals, or by keeping you guys informed on what's relevant and what's happening every day in your particular field of interest, in your technology, in your industry, right? And how do we do this? We do this by making products, by creating products that our members love and use every day. So the company was founded in 2003 by Reid Hoffman and a bunch of other co-founders. We have over 187 million members on LinkedIn. More than half of them are outside the US. More than 17 million members in India. First million members, it took us 500 days to get to the first million members. Now I have a question for the audience. Any guesses on how many days did it take us to get to the most recent million? I wish one day was true. 20 days? 1 day? 5 days. Right, that's the right ballpark. So 6 days to get the latest million members. That's 2 new signups every second. That's like 300 members since I started speaking here. Isn't that cool? And we had over 4.2 billion people searches in 2011. 4.2 billion people searches. That's why you need to be found. That's why you need to keep your profile up to date. Because there's somebody out there looking for you to make that connection, to give you that next business opportunity. And it's really important to keep that profile up to date. Let's talk about data science now. So I'm going to start with the definition of data. I'm going to take a textbook sort of dictionary definition of what is data and then evolve that into data science and how we work at LinkedIn. So this is from the Webster Dictionary. Data is factual information used as basis for reasoning, discussion, or calculation, or information in numerical format that can be digitally transmitted or processed. Now, by that definition, one would argue that weblogs are data, right? Like everything that you collect about people's activities, et cetera, that's it. Now, that's kind of technically true, but not particularly useful, right? So you have to get the data from this kind of blob state, parse it, normalize it, and standardize it, and that leads to information. So once you have a normalized data, standardized data, that's information. Information, in turn, leads to knowledge. And this is your basic classical business intelligence, business analytics, reporting, dashboarding. How are we doing as a business? Like, this is the equivalent of saying, know thyself, so that you can identify areas of opportunity that you can improve upon. If you can't measure it, you can't fix it, right? But truly, you can really go beyond that. Insights, information then will lead to insights. How are, for those of you who are in the technology space, or sort of consumer internet in particular, how are people using your services? What do they like? What don't they like? What works? What doesn't work, right? Where can you really, really, really improve and drive the business? And that's wisdom, right? So insights say, what can we learn about our users, our members? And wisdom is, what should we do next based on what we know, right? So what is data science? I call data science more the art of turning data into products and insights. So products is you're using data to build some features, some things that your members are going to use. So that's external facing stuff. And insights, same thing. Your customers now are internal. It's your executive staff. It's your product teams. How do you use the data to inform the products? Decisions don't get made based on gut, at least not at LinkedIn. In a data-driven organization, extremely, extremely important to invest in both sides of data. And what makes a data scientist? So I often get asked, kind of this question when I go to conferences, and I'll give you my sort of overview definition of this, and then I'll spend a couple of minutes talking a little bit more. So data science, as the data scientist, is the right combination of curiosity, intuition. I wonder what can I do based on this data that I have? What questions can I ask? What can this data tell me? Having the right intuition to know the limitations of your approaches and say, this is probably overinterpretation, or this is the right kind of data that I need. Gathering that data, standardizing it, doing the right modeling and stats on it, having the ability to code it if you want to build a product, to push it to production, visualize and communicate. Because if you can't communicate, then nobody's going to use this, right? So when I do this slide, a lot of people say, well, that's one person. That sounds like 4 people. But it is one person. Every single person on my team has, to varying extents, all of these skills. That's what you should look for if you're going to set a data science team. And clearly the demand for data scientists is going through the roof. Like, this is real data based on LinkedIn, and it's showing the percentage of data analysts and data scientist positions over time. So they're not easy to find. But what do we do with this data, right? So I said, we build products that our members use and love, and we draw insights to drive the business. Before you can do that, there are a couple of things that you have to overcome. Specifically in the case of LinkedIn, scale. We have 187 million members that generate a ton of data every day, and we collect all of it. To give you an idea, we process, I'm sorry for the fonts, they're kind of screwed up here, right? We process over 200 terabytes of data to produce some of the recommendations that you see on LinkedIn. And this is not all recommendations. This is just the people you may know recommendations. Over 200 terabytes of data every day, right? So when I joined the company in 2009, we had about 30 million members, and we would do this computation for 30 million people once every 6 weeks, because we didn't have the infrastructure in place to do it in real time. And then we created this very clever Metropolis algorithm that would pretend that the results are fresh, because it would randomize. So if you refresh the page, you would see a different set of outputs, but they were all pre-computed 6 weeks ago. We would just pick them at random. Now we do it every day. So we went from 30 million members to 187 million members doing the computations once every 6 weeks to once every 24 hours. We process over 10 billion rows of data every day. And we track events in real time. Like you click on the site, 5 minutes later, I can tell you that you clicked on the site, right? So how do we do this? So this is a unique challenge for someone like us, right? So big data brings big challenges. A lot of the out-of-the-box solutions don't work for us. So we have to create our own solutions. So we spend a lot of time engineering effort in building scalable solutions, and then we make it available to the general community by open sourcing them. To give you an example, the people you may know stuff, right? Like, how do you think, like, you show up on LinkedIn, and we have, tens of millions of members that show up every month, and we can produce a lot of this, we can gather a lot of this, get back a lot of this data in real time. There's no delay. If I click on your profile, I can see what my common connections with you are. Like, this is computationally expensive stuff. So how do we do it? We built this thing called Project Voldemort. Voldemort is our distributed key value pair system. It does only one thing, which is to look up for a given key, what is the set of values that I need to return. It does it really, really well. Right? Kafka. I talked about real-time tracking for events. Kafka is our fire hose. It just tracks every single data element. Every single thing that happens on the website gets tracked. And if you are interested in knowing more about that data, you just become a subscriber. So it's a publishing subscription mechanism. Zoe is our search indexing. Like, we can return real-time search results without any latency. Like, all this stuff we just built on our own, and then we make it available. And now that we have all this, now we can start to do really interesting things with it, right? So let's talk about building products. So what do we begin with? So we have this profile information for all of our members. We look at every piece of information on that profile, right? And that's kind of where we start with. And that's the basic foundation of all of our products on the data product side. All the way from, in my profile, you see that, it's a particularly filled out and complete profile. In a lot of cases, you don't have all this much granularity. You don't have this much information. We can create algorithms behind the scene that allow me to infer where you went to school without you telling me where you went to school, because of the people that you're connected to. I can infer where you work because of the people that you're connected. So we do a lot of this stuff in the back end, but we basically take every single piece of data that's available to us, add inference algorithms on top of that, and start building products. But before you do that, again, you have to make sure the data is clean. Now, this is extremely important because this is a garbage in, garbage out problem. So I'll show you an example. So here's an example of someone who works at IBM, and they call themselves a software engineer. That's the first title, and an SW engineer as the second title. And they claim to work at IBM and then IBM Research. So you can tell that it's the same thing, right? You know that it's the same thing, but how does a machine tell that it's really the same thing? So how many different variations of the word software engineer do you think exist on LinkedIn? 500? 128? Nice. Over 6,000 different ways of saying software engineer, because it's free from text. You can enter whatever you want. And that's the 6,000 that we know about, right? So this is like disambiguation, saying deduplication, saying these are all the same thing. How many IBMs do you think exist in our system? It can't be 6,000. There are over 8,000 different ways of saying IBM. It's insane, right? So for any recommender system to work, I need to be able to tell that these different variants are really the same thing, right? So how do we do that? It's a combination of algorithms, crowdsourcing. But once you have that, then you can do some really interesting stuff. So the easiest data product to build once you have good, clean data is collaborative filtering data. So on LinkedIn, you'll see it in the form of people who viewed this profile also viewed that profile. You see it all the time on Amazon. People who bought this product also purchased that product. Like, that's the easiest thing to build. The most important one that we built is the people you may know algorithm. That's the key for our engagement and our viral growth. And most people actually don't know it. This was invented at LinkedIn in 2006 and then subsequently adopted by every other social network out there. And I want to take a few minutes to walk you through kind of the end-to-end of a new product that we launched a couple of years ago, LinkedIn Skills. It has become fundamentally foundational to LinkedIn in terms of how we think about our products going forward and our members, because as a professional, we are nothing but a collection of skills and experiences that we bring to the table, right? So where do we begin? Again, as I said, we start with the profile, and there's a section called specialties, which is a text blob where you tell us about what are the things that you're good at, and etc., expertise. We extract that, and we create a dictionary of standardized skills. Now, this is really important, because if you don't have this dictionary, there's a lot of stuff that you can't do. So free-form text is interesting, but not as interesting as standardized dictionary of skill keywords. And we do this in real time. So we'll go and do the parsing of all the new profiles every day to see if we found new skills, and that's how we kind of identify trending skills, for example. But once you have this, you can do some really interesting stuff. So here's the skill page for Hadoop. And then you can see there's a description of Hadoop. At the bottom, these are the top professionals associated with Hadoop. Doug Cutting is the inventor of Hadoop, for example, right? And again, so there's a lot of algorithm stuff that goes behind this. So how do I find who is the top person? I use PageRank. We use PageRank instead of links. We use incoming connection requests as a signal there, but that's just one of many. But then I can say, here's the top professionals in Hadoop. On the left-hand side, you can see related skills to Hadoop. So if you want to learn Hadoop, you probably should think about HBase, MapReduce, and all this other stuff, AWS, right? All the big data skills go together. On the right-hand side, I can show how fast Hadoop is growing over the last year, all the top companies with Hadoop, listed in them. LinkedIn is number 4, which is nice. So you can't do this if you don't have standardized data. You can't do it if you don't have clean data. You can't do it if you don't have disambiguated data. 2 words can mean the same thing. And the same word can mean multiple things, right? So there's a lot of stuff that needs to get done before you get to this. So here's so I talked about visualization. Here's an interesting view of the world. This is the universe of all the skills on LinkedIn. So every dot is a skill, and 2 dots get an edge, get connected when the same person has 2 skills, right? And then we do some clustering algorithm on it, and here's the visualization. Let's look at one particular aspect of this. So here's the technology skills. So you can see Python, Ruby, so coding languages, database, SQL. Then let's look at what's on the left of MySQL. Here you see all the NoSQL big data skills, so Hadoop, HBase, MapReduce, AWS, EC2. Kind of makes sense. Let's go back. See that dark blue cluster here? Let's see what that is. Actually, how many people are BizDev folks in this room? Because I want to give a discount. So nothing against BizDev folks. I love BizDev people. But let's see what kind of skills they have. Hard worker, attention to detail, revenue improvement. We call this the BS cluster. Like I said, nothing against you guys. But it's kind of funny, right? So that was on the product side. So there's a bunch of stuff that you do and build products that your members use that are external facing. But equally important is having fun with the data, right? So here's an example. Top CEO names on LinkedIn: Peter, Bob, Jack, Bruce, Fred for men, Deborah, Sally, Deborah, Cynthia, Caroline for women. Do you want to guess what is the top name in engineering? By the way, this is global data, right? So this is not specific to India. Top name in engineering. We can do better than that. Rajesh. Yeah. Isn't that cool? But then we also have, we can do some seriously important stuff with this data. So we have a unique lens into the global economy here. So we are able to identify trends in sectors and sort of companies, how are these sectors growing? What is shrinking? How is the economy doing? And this is not survey data. This is like real data that our members give us, and by virtue of their activities and their job changes, we can identify these trends. So here I'm looking at the top growing and the top shrinking industries over the last 5 years. The fastest growing industry is renewables and environment. The most shrinking is print media, newspapers. But then you see, if you look at number 3, online publishing is right up there at the top. So newspaper from print media is going to online. So we can get these kind of insights, and these are really compelling. Now imagine if I can take this, cross-reference that with the skills data, and tell our members, guys, if you're living in New York and you're in restaurants, right, you need to move into this. This is the area that's growing in New York. These are the skills that you need to be successful, and this is where you can go to acquire those skills. That becomes really compelling, and when no surprise, this data made it into the President's Economic Report in 2012, as well as The Economist. And our hope is to continue to work with the government to kind of identify these opportunities and create these sort of understand the skills gaps, and how do you build skilled professionals for the future? How do you inform education policy for the future based on this data that we have? And then ultimately, how do you serve the business? How do you use data to drive the business? So I'm just going to leave you guys with a few types of questions that fundamentally we try to answer in my team and that help drive the business by doing a bunch of strategic analysis, right? So what is the value of an action that a user takes on the site? A lot of times when you look at like technology, websites, people talk about everything in terms of page views. How many page views did you generate? But you got to think a little bit beyond that. So not all page views are created equal. So I'll give you an example. Again, within the specific context of LinkedIn, I could go to a LinkedIn group and browse for some content and read some content there, or maybe ask a question or answer a question which generates maybe 5 page views. Or I could invite someone to connect with them, right? And that's 1 page view. There's something fundamentally missing there, which is the downstream impact of what I did. So if I invited to connect with you, there's a certain probability that you will accept that invitation, you will come back to the site, you will do a bunch of page views, you will invite somebody to connect with you, and I need to take that into account, right? So how does this math work? What is the early behavior on the site that is predictive of future engagement? I want to build a rule book that all my product managers can use, where I tell them, if you could only get your members to do 5 things, these are the 5 things that you should focus on, and in this order, because this is how important they are. What is the value of a user? Are all users created equal? So we have premium users and we have our free users, but how do you understand which are the more valuable users? They're based on engagement, their network, and how active they are. So how do you quantify these types of things? The world is turning increasingly mobile today. How does that impact site engagement? Do people who start using the mobile app stop using the website? Because that's going to be a pretty bad deal for the advertisers on the website until you figure out advertising on the phone, right? So how does that dynamics work? So it's not a one-to-one. These are some of the nuanced, sort of more complex problems that we try to work on in my team. And then, I lastly leave you guys with some best practices that I think I've sort of that have come to light in my experience at LinkedIn. More data is always better than less data. Storage is cheap. Track everything you can, because a few years down the line, you'll be really cursing yourself if your business takes off that you didn't track this, because now you've limited your ability to do things, at least for a certain period of time, until you start tracking it. So think about that from the beginning. More data is always better than less data. Raw data is always better than processed data, because it allows you to test and iterate and go back and forth on what different algorithms, models, etc. you want to use. Data standardization and data quality is key, because this is the garbage in, garbage out problem. If you don't fix it up front, you're not going to do good recommendations if your product is based on recommendations or collaborative releases, which most data products are. So invest in data standardization, data quality early on. Simple models are always better than complex models, because they allow you to understand why the model does what it does, so that you can fix it, or you can create multiple models to serve different business use cases. Lastly, fail fast, iterate, test, test, test. Always, always test. We do at any given time about 500 to 600 A/B tests on our site, and that allows us to rapidly iterate. And some of these outputs are extremely not intuitive at all, right? So you see a result that gives you a step function increase in some KPI that you never thought would happen. So a lot of it, sometimes it's serendipitous, but it's really, really important. And with that, ultimately, like I said, it's all about the people that do the work. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you. We'll take a couple of quick questions. Can we, anybody else? Yeah. Back right behind.
Hi. I I think you have a great platform, a lot of innovation happening, good search, and a lot of tools. Why the restriction on 50 groups? I have a paid subscription, still I can't cross 50. Why is that?
I guess philosophically, are you familiar with the Dunbar number?
Sorry?
Dunbar was a social scientist in the 1700s who at one point said that a human being is not capable of forming real connections with more than 150 people. So I think there's some of that philosophy that goes behind groups, but the real reason is to make sure that people are not spamming or getting spammed. But I agree with you. I think especially for paid subscribers, that limit needs to go away. Yeah.
I look forward to that. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll try.
Let the lady ask the question. Yeah.
Yeah. So, hi, this is Amrita. The amount of data you have, the amount of analysis you do, is there a thought to commercialize it, monetize it, or is it purely for internal use right now?
So we are extremely sensitive about user privacy, and anything that potentially even comes close to violating that, we are never going to commercialize that.
Right. No, I mean data like industries where the jobs are going down, or
yeah,
moving from where to where, that kind of stuff.
So here's kind of the interesting sort of dilemma here, right? So it can also go into privacy issues for companies. So what we tend to believe in is if we do these types of insights that are in general good for the world, we'll just make it available to everyone. So we won't sell it, we'll just publish it.
And what about the algorithms and others, the infrastructure that you're building?
Yeah, I mean, again, on the infrastructure side, all of our projects, all of our engineering projects are open source. So Kafka, Voldemort, Azkaban, you can go download, use, and contribute to as well. On the algorithm side, we're not going to publish our algorithms. We're not going to publish the details of the mechanics of what goes into them. But generally, when we invest in infrastructure, I think it's our way of giving back to the community. Yeah.
Yep. You want to ask?
Yeah, before the question, I would actually like to say, because of that analytics which you said about engineering, I think it's a good way where kids can now be named by knowing those kind of data numbers. If I want to make my kid an engineer, I'm going to name him Rajesh.
So here's a great example of causation versus correlation. Is your name Rajesh?
I didn't understand that. Okay, so my question is actually very similar to the one that the female over there asked. So the data that you guys are generating inside, is it possible for you guys, or would you guys be doing it? Because what happens is, as businesses or as professionals, okay, we're always wanting to know what's happening in which industry, what's the trend, how is it shifting. Okay, we're not interested in somebody's private data, but we're obviously interested in understanding how things are moving. Okay, and if we can get an access to that, I think it's going to make a lot of it's going to solve a lot of problems for us, because brands want really that kind of a data for a marketer or a consultant to use it and then make the right effects to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point down the line it might make sense for us to do that, and I imagine that we would still be in the business of publishing that insight, on a quarterly basis or whatever. This type of stuff we still do it just out of the love of our hearts for data. We are curious. We want to see what's going on. We end up doing this. The president's economic report is a great example. A White House reached out to Reed, and Reed, I guess, forgot to reach out to us and said, you have 5 days to make this happen. So, we made it happen in 5 days. But even with a team of 30 or 40 people, it's a fair amount of investment. So we haven't invested in that aspect yet. I think it might make sense for us to do it down the line. That said, we do provide additional insight to our corporate clients. So we have recruiting solutions, and if you use LinkedIn as a company to recruit talent, we provide you insights of this nature. So where is talent flowing into your organization? Where is talent flowing out of your organization? How do you compare with the peer set? We won't do a comparison one-to-one, but we'll do an industry comparison. So we have some of that in place, yes.
The last question, please. You can take that later, please.
Yeah,
You're slightly
we can follow
tough
up
on
offline.
time. Yeah.
Off late, hello, here.
Here.
Oh. We've all got at some point, plenty of random Facebook requests in the past. And I see LinkedIn sort of going that way, where I personally get a lot of random LinkedIn requests from people I don't even know. So is there some way you can put a curb on that, where if it's just about 1 degree of separation, then they are allowed to contact you, because it's taking away from the whole professional LinkedIn experience?
Yeah, so today we curb if you're 2 degrees, more than 2 degrees removed, then you're not allowed to contact people that you don't know. Keep in mind, if you have large networks, what happens is that the math behind the algorithms gets a little bit more complex. So one could argue, and we've thought about this problem a lot, specifically for folks with large networks. One could argue that up to 500 or so, you've connected with everyone that you know. But then imagine at 500 connections, you decide to go work at another company. That whole cycle is going to start again, and you'll start to meet people again. It becomes tricky for people with very large networks, and that's also one of the reasons when our best practices or our guidance tends to be connect with people that you know and you trust.
Thanks, Manu. I would request Prashant to please thank him on our behalf.
Thank you, everyone.
Stay.